Organized Grind with Oracle Uno.
Yeah.
Recorded live at Graff Roots Studios in South Minneapolis.
Yes. What's up, world? This is Oracle Uno checking in with another episode of Organized Grind, the podcast. This is episode 20, and today we got a special guest by the name of Jay Escobar. Why don't you say what's up, Jay?
What's up, Jay?
We go way back. Jay was one of the first producers that really reached out and sent me original beats when I was maybe 14 years old, 15 years old. Back when there was a little crew called Broken Home Studios.
Yeah.
Gonna try to touch on that, but Jay is actually what? You're currently on tour, or you just got off tour?
Just wrapped up the last show of our tour.
Okay.
The Heart of a Gypsy Cobra tour.
That's right. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Just the crew that I'm with right now, Freshwater Deejays. DJ St. Joel, he released his album, which is called Gypsy Cobra.
Okay.
And I released my project, which is called Shape of Our Heart.
Dope.
All within a couple months of each other, and so we decided to combine forces and go out and promote what we do.
Very cool, man. You guys are part of a DJ collective called Freshwater Deejays.
That's right.
How long has that been going on for now?
Freshwater Deejays has been around, I think, since 2013 or 2012.
Okay.
I joined Freshwater Deejays in 2015. And I've known DJ St. Joel like forever.
That's right.
But he really wanted to put me on because I was already DJing, but I was not doing it consistently and doing gigs.
Sure.
So he showed me love, put me on, and since then I've been doing about 150 gigs a year.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
That's dope. Well, we're definitely going to work our way up to that. But first and foremost, do you remember what your first experience in hip-hop was? And I'm talking like, was it a song that grabbed you? Was it family? Was it friends? What's your first memory that you can think of where hip-hop was involved?
Probably my listening to music around the house.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of four, and my oldest sister, she was into hip-hop and R&B, and I wasn't.
Okay.
But through osmosis, it started coming in, and probably maybe 11, 12 years old is when I started diving into hip-hop. Really.
Okay. Do you remember like what one of the first songs was that really captured you? Or MC or group or
NWA.
NWA?
For sure. NWA for sure.
Okay. And was that from your older sister that had that, or how did you hear that?
A friend of mine down the street who I used to get into like fist fights with every like 2 or 3 months. I was over at his house playing Nintendo.
Okay.
And he put this tape on, and it was like a revelation. Because before that, like the music that I was into was either R&B or hard rock.
Okay.
And he played, I think it was the album Niggas for Life.
Sure.
So it wasn't like their early stuff. It was like, kind of on the after Ice Cube left the group, actually. But I listened to that record and I was like, this is so dope.
That's tight.
Because it was just like Dr. Dre's beats. Something about them just like moved my soul in a way, and I think it's because I was already into R&B and funk and stuff like that from my dad, who has a massive record collection.
Yeah.
Hearing that stuff in it really, really dragged me through it. And then, after that, NWA broke up, and a few years later, The Chronic came out. And I was like, forget about it. So I was, I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Sure, yep, I was just about to get there.
And so, like, I was way more influenced by the West Coast.
Okay, yep.
Than by the East Coast. And so because I wasn't like a day one hip hop head. Like I was the only one of the only few people that I knew that was just straight West Coast.
Yeah. So like you just said, you grew up in Lancaster. What was the experience like growing up there?
Lancaster's a really interesting place because it's like a little mini city. So there's like a pretty hardcore city in the center of this county, Lancaster County, which is Amish.
Okay.
And so literally you have, it's Black, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Jamaican, all sorts of people in this town. Maybe 40,000 people surrounded by corn-fed, white boys and Amish people.
Yeah.
And, just the interactions are weird because with some of the school districts, you could have like straight G's going to school with Jacob Stoltzfus.
Yeah, right.
The big Amish dude who's like in the 9th grade with a full beard and no mustache.
Right. Yeah, man, that's wild. So, what was your high school experience like? Was this prior to the move up here, or did you go to high school in Lancaster?
I went to high school in Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
I went to a private prep school.
Okay.
Which was mostly rich kids, except for me. I went there on a scholarship, so I got in the 3rd grade. Because the public schools, just my parents were not feeling it.
Sure.
And they were like, here's an opportunity. You score high on tests. And so I tested in. And so it was like being plunked out of my world because the neighborhood that I lived in was definitely not rich and white.
Sure.
But I got plunked out of my neighborhood and went to school with, what we call on the East Coast old money.
Sure, right.
Which is like, you're talking about some of the families got like hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's also just regular rich people there too, and a few like upper middle class. And then sprinkled in, they got the.
Okay. So how did you get that scholarship?
I tested in.
So was that through the school?
Yeah,
or?
it was through the school. So they had a program called the We Don't Have Any Black People or Puerto Ricans program.
Right.
And so they opened up some scholarship money for some people to come in. So
they opened up the books.
Yeah, so I got in under that program, and I was like literally one of 4 in a school that was probably about 600 people.
Sure. So
less than 1% when I got in there. And then when I graduated, there was significantly more.
Okay.
It went from like point something percent to probably about 20%, and may even be more now.
Okay. So during this time, when did you first start creating your own music? And was it rhymes first? Was it production first? Was this during high school, or is this after?
So I've been singing since I was like 5.
Okay.
And I would just like sing whatever was on the radio. So like Michael Jackson, Aerosmith, Poison, Def Leppard, a lot of rock.
Yeah.
And a lot of R&B, and I'd, even try like some like Jodeci and whatnot.
Sure, yeah, man.
And so I grew up singing that stuff, and then I had this running partner that I met in when I went into this rich white school.
Yeah.
His name's Casey Golden.
Okay, so that's how y'all met.
Yeah. So, so we met when I got into the school. So actually, I tested in the 3rd grade. I started my 4th grade year. So, second day of 4th grade year, met this this Jewish kid who was just funny, and we meshed right away. We became pretty good friends after a little scuffle at the very beginning of school, And
Can you talk about what the scuffle was all about?
I don't even remember. I just knew, well, actually, I think Casey told me that he was jealous because he was already the class clown and I came in class clowning it up, and he was like, I'm just going to like jump on this kid and sit on him.
Ah, that's funny.
And so the teacher made us sit together and work things out. But we both were really into music. So, you know, whether it was like hard rock, whatever, like, you know, we just vibed on it. And we tried to start like a cappella singing groups.
Okay.
Like in 6th and 7th grade.
Sure.
So we were always kind of experimenting with different stuff together. And we, as we got into hip hop for real, which was like middle school, early into high school, we kind of settled on, okay, let's start this hip hop thing.
Yeah.
And we started a group called S.U.S.P.E.C.T.S.
Suspects, yeah, man. So what year roughly are we talking about here?
1995.
Okay. Yeah, because when I first started to get into your guys' music, I noticed right off the bat that you guys were very good at harmonizing. And like that was one of the main staples of what made you guys stand out was the harmonies and the fact that you both rapped and sang.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I've been curious about how you guys developed that together, because it seems like you guys came together to make this cohesive sound that really no one locally around here was fucking with.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is like it was when we came to Minnesota, we were both outsiders. You know, we came here like a couple years apart.
Okay.
And so we're, you know, both of us coming from Pennsylvania, just jumped into the Minnesota scene, and we didn't really understand what was going on here.
Yeah.
So we had already had this established sensibility of like we sing, we rap, we like make really artsy fartsy music that we like are vibing on, and we didn't care about genre. So like, you know, on our very first record, which took years to make, there's a song that's just acoustic guitar rapping and singing.
Sure. So rewind just a little bit here. Were you the one to come here first, or was Casey?
Casey was the one to come here first.
So what sparked his interest in from going from Lancaster to here?
He got a college visit from Macalester College at our school, because
Wow.
being at an elite prep high school, colleges from all over the place come and like beg you to come to their school.
It's almost like football.
Yeah. And so like they, you know, there's a network of like top private schools on the East Coast that
Sure.
So if you actually look at like Ivy League colleges and stuff like that, you'll find a lot of the kids come from the same high schools.
Okay.
So he had a college visit from Macalester College. I'm not sure what ultimately made his decision. From him being here, I had visited and kind of just checked in on some things and saw some opportunities.
Yeah.
To work with artists and to be around and in studios here. And really it was like a combination of the fact that my best friend that I grew up with is here, and like there's interesting stuff happening musically here.
Sure.
So I just made the trip.
Oh, okay. So prior to making the trip up here, did you first start creating music lyric side or production side?
So we had already in Lancaster we had already been performing, writing. Suspects and our entire crew, Souls of Life, existed in Pennsylvania for like 4 or 5 years.
So all of you came from Lancaster, the entire Souls of Life crew.
So we started in Lancaster and Reading, and then we kind of built another network out here.
Okay.
So
sure.
we adopted some Minnesota artists into our crew,
Okay.
but had artists from Pennsylvania who would come to Minnesota and go back. So we had shows going on in Pennsylvania, shows going on out here in Minnesota. So we had, you know, essentially the same crew in 2 different cities.
Yeah.
And we built that crew just out of our network of friends who all love music. And I was producing 90% of all of the music for all of the artists in Souls of Life.
Sure. So do you remember what your first piece of gear was that you made beats with?
An Ensoniq SQ2 keyboard.
Okay, that's dope. Could you like sequence and everything in this keyboard, or did you have to run into an external something?
No, at first it was all just the keyboard.
Wow.
So I had like these little memory cards with libraries of sound.
Sure.
And I would just like plug away. And the funny thing is like we didn't know, you know, Suspects, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We had a feeling we wanted to produce our own music, but we weren't any good at it. So we had attempted our very first like little mixtapey thing.
Yeah.
We did in New York with Golden's aunt.
Okay.
And that was just off of beats that we found in different places. And I was really unsatisfied with that. Casey was really unsatisfied with that. So my dad caught me that keyboard, and I just started tinkering around with it. And I made probably like 20 or so beats, and we recorded 15 songs over it. And then when we listened to it, it was so terrible that we burned the masters. Like literally we had a bonfire and we burned the masters. And this is a good lesson in failure, because that didn't discourage me from being a producer.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that my creation was horrible.
Right.
What it did was like, I got to learn how to do this the right way.
Yeah, man.
So I like failed. Both of us failed face first on this record that we could not release. We had, you know, by that time we had tons and tons of lyrics, mostly bad, some good. And I got to work, and my dad, who is a longtime musician, I enlisted his help, because I'm like, I need to know basic music theory in order to make this work. You know, I know how to tap out, you know, a beat.
Right.
The drums I didn't have a problem with. It was creating everything on top of that. So my dad, you know, took a hands-on, hands-off approach. So he'd show me a little bit, then let me do my thing.
Yeah.
And so I holed myself up in my bedroom over the summers, you know, because this is still in high school, just making beats like 16 hours a day.
Sure.
And my mom would like knock on my door and remind me to eat.
Okay. Yeah, man.
And then finally we had something usable, which ended up being our first record, which I think there was like 18, 19 cuts on it.
Sure. And that was Delusions of Grandeur?
That was Time Will Tell.
Time Will Tell. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to come up on the first commercial break here, but before we go into the move and your move up here, why don't you speak a little bit about your pops and kind of his musical background? Because it seems like he definitely had a huge influence on your music mind. Yeah,
so my pops is he's a pretty well-known salsa musician. Keyboard player, but can pretty much arrange for any instrument. Knows a lot about percussion, played with like legends of salsa music.
Like Puente?
I don't think he played with Puente.
Okay.
But like Eddie Palmieri.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Ruben Blades, who's an actor, but also a like dope salsa musician.
Yeah, that's dope.
And yeah, so I even when I was a little kid, you know, I would go to his gigs and I would just be mesmerized watching him like play the keyboard and like his eyes closed and him shuffling back and forth and just like people dancing, and it was crazy. And so music was definitely like it runs through the blood.
Word up.
Yeah. So he's definitely one of my biggest inspirations in terms of being a musician. And also because he has a love for every genre, like he was my template for not limiting myself to genre.
Sure. That's dope. Well, shit. Let's get into the first commercial break here. We're sitting with Jay Escobar. We will be right back. This is Organized Grind, the podcast with Oracle Uno.
Yo. Representing the Midwest, this is Truth Maze. Yes, y'all. Check out the new EP. It's entitled The Holy Bible. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Music and elsewhere. Red Pill Music, baby. You see, with my words I can heal or kill. Talk fuck shit or truly keep it real. I can grab up a burner and flame my brother, or he and I can train so we elevate each other. I could talk about pussy all day and all night and not admit I'm toxic and don't treat women right. I could tell everybody how to pop a new pill, or tell the next generation the matrix is real. Cause what I know is I hold the power at will. Still sharp and still, goddammit, it's ill. For mentally the blade I hold, it takes skill, specially designed so I can kill Bill. And the fake shit in me I need to reveal. That's what a god does with the ability to build. My soul is my rock, my spirit's my shield. My soul is my rock, my spirit's my shield.
Yes, y'all. This is Organized Grind, the podcast with Oracle Uno, chilling with Jay Escobar, Freshwater Deejays in the building. So we just got through some history. Jay's from Lancaster, talking about how him and Casey Golden met, talking about the influence that his dad had as far as his music goes. So we just gotten to the point where Casey made the move. You're still out there in Lancaster. Am I saying that right? Is it?
It's Lancaster.
Lancaster. So
Yeah.
it's like one flowing Lancaster. So you're still out there. Casey has made the move. What finally made you say, "All right, I'm gonna make the move up to the Twin Cities as well"?
I think it was communicating with a number of people who were like, "I want you to produce my project."
Okay.
And we already had an album in the tank by that point, and I was just like, if I want to keep doing this, and I want to make another S.U.S.P.E.C.T.S record, which I really badly want to make another S.U.S.P.E.C.T.S record.
Yeah.
I had to move myself up here to do it. So I just took the Nestea plunge and came out here and just dove feet first into being more of a producer than artist, but also being heavy into artistry.
Sure.
And that's when we started working on Delusions of Grandeur, which was, I would like, our first Minnesota album.
Sure. So let's go back to when you first got here. How long did it take for you to start to tap in within the local scene of what we had going on, and like who were some of the people that were, making the most noise at the time when you and Casey first got up here?
I would say Days.
Okay.
Because I didn't have anything else to do. I was like, where are the shows at? Who's here? I think I met Slug like 2 days after I moved to Minnesota.
Okay.
And then the first place where I stayed at was really close to Idea.
Okay, sure.
And I met Idea at a show. I forget the venue now.
Okay.
But yeah, and it turned out that we were going in the same direction to go home.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, yeah, let's like chat for a little bit.
Tight. So you had stayed in St. Paul the first time you came up here. That was the first spot that you landed.
Yeah.
Was St. Paul.
Because Casey was going to McAllister College.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I could not stay at McAllister College because I was not a student.
Right.
So, yeah. So I found a place close by for a little bit, and then kind of hopped. I Minneapolis, St. Paul hopped. Mm-hmm. So like every couple of years, I would be like back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to meet a lot of people. I think I would go to every show that I could, and so it was really like Rhymesayers was not the behemoth that it is now.
Sure.
It was a local rap crew, one of many local rap crews. And so, yeah, I met Musab as well. Cancer, all the dudes from Cancer I met like within weeks of moving here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I on purpose got really plugged in.
Sure.
So it was like Interlock and Rhymesayers were the two crews that I had like the most interaction with.
Sure.
And then there were other people that were like adjunct to those two crews.
Okay. What were some of the venues that were kind of popping back then, if you can remember at all? I know a lot of them has closed since, but can you do any of the names kind of stick out to you? Was this like the Pasta Bar days, or was like the Pasta Bar not happening yet?
This was pre-Pasta Bar.
Pre-Pasta Bar.
And I mean, I know for sure the Dinky Towner was like there. I honestly, I'm bad.
Sure.
I'm bad with venue names.
That's fine, man.
I just know they were like everywhere, and we also did a lot of house parties.
Okay. And then around this time, did we have any like national acts that were hitting town?
I mean, Atmosphere was popping nationally. Like, so this is, I mean, we're talking 99, 2000.
Okay, yeah.
So like this is post Overcast and,
Yep.
and everything. I was still in Pennsylvania, still in high school.
Okay.
During that time.
Okay, so what year did you land here? I should
99.
ask. You asked. Okay, so you landed here in 99. Okay, all right, that makes sense. So yeah, that was right when kind of Interlock and Rhymesayers were like the neck to neck crews
exactly
popping out here. So time will tell. Did that release here?
That released in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay.
We brought copies with us. Not that many people are interested.
Sure.
And we got to work. So when I talk about Delusions of Grandeur, the album that we released in 2001, it was a process getting up to that record. So we would release like unofficial records leading up to that because we were experimenting with different sounds.
Sure. That
we wanted to get it right. But our main thing was just like, let's keep putting out music. Let's keep doing as many shows as we can. Let's find management. Let's, do all of those things. So we were just really trying to plug in. And I think, I don't know, but I think a little bit of my eagerness and the fact that it was like clear that I was an out of towner, people didn't know how to take me.
Sure.
Because it's like, why is this dude trying to get on everything and be with everybody and he's not from here? Who is this cat? So like a few people like were like down and mess with me like pretty hard early on. Other people were just like, I don't know, like what does he want?
Yeah.
But it's just like I'm one of those people. I'm just excited about life.
That's right.
And I think when you have that spirit, people can take you the wrong way. Like a lot of people, even to this day, like they're wondering what my angle is, or like, what is he trying to get? Why is he like doing all? And it's just like, I get a giddy thrill out of the excitement of like newness and creation and like watching art happen.
For sure. That
like never dies. I'm like a 5-year-old kid, even now at 40, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
I get excited, when like somebody who's 18 comes to my studio and they just got fire.
Right.
Like,
right.
I'm 18 again.
Yeah, I totally get it, man. So around this time, so you guys are working on Delusions of Grandeur. Has Casey started to record yet? Like, is he starting to get on his chops as far as the recording and engineering, or did that start back in Lancaster? Like, when did he start to really have hands-on as far as the recording process?
So we kind of did everything like a little bit neck and neck.
Okay.
So like, he was really about creating creating the song. You know, a lot of what I did was like, I wanted to inject lyrics in it. He wanted to craft the song.
Sure.
And so he was more conscientious about the songwriting, where I would just like be a flurry of lyrics coming at him. And so that's how our dynamic like worked really early on, like years.
Okay.
And I did more of the technical stuff early on. And it was really out of necessity because, you know, 6 months into me being here, we like had a crew.
Yeah.
of like multiple artists, both in Pennsylvania and Minnesota. And our artists from Pennsylvania were coming up here to work with us. So like out of necessity, I was like, yo, Casey, you need to get on the computer and start like recording fools. Cause like, I don't have time in my day to do this. I still got to like go sling pizza coupons, which was my job.
Okay, yeah, man.
I sold pizza coupons door to door.
Nice.
So he would come in and he'd work the boards and engineer, and he got more into like everything that you give him, he would get more interested in. You know, so like we both simultaneously became engineers and producers and songwriters. And really like we had a lot of like friendly and unfriendly competition in the group, you know, because like time will tell. I'll say it's like song wise, it's like 50-50 collaboration. Lyric wise, it's like 80-20.
Okay.
And
in which direction?
In my direction.
In your direction. Okay.
Because I was so fast with the lyrics. You know, I could write 100 songs, like, or 100 verses.
Sure.
Rather,
Yeah.
in like a few days. And then it would be like, Casey, like, what do you got for a hook?
Yeah.
You know, here's like some lyrics. Like, here's 3 full verses.
Yeah.
Give me a hook, get in, rap the verses. And so, then when he had more to say and wanted to be involved more, like, I had to slow myself down in terms of like the lyric writing to match the pace that he was wanting to craft the songs.
Sure.
And yeah, so there was like some back and forth, you know, like real and imagined tension in the group to where we were like trying to get things to be like a 50-50 collaboration all across the board on everything.
So as far as your lyrics and even your production in beats, was there kind of a prototype group that was out there that you guys were like, we're trying to kind of be like these guys but better, or your own version of, or like who were some of the influences that you can remember like really striking you as far as your beginning of your production and lyrics and kind of shaping what you would become?
It's kind of weird. I would say from a hip hop standpoint, Outkast was a big influence.
Sure.
But really it was like music in general.
Okay.
Like, I sampled on Delusions of Grandeur. I sampled Ani DeFranco because I was like in love with her music.
Yeah.
I sampled Steely Dan because I love their music. So, there wasn't really like any prototype hip hop group out there.
Sure.
That we wanted to be like. We just wanted to merge all of these things that we like loved about music together in the hip hop format.
Sure. Yeah. Because I remember like just that sound, like it was almost like a new edition meets like LL Cool J and like it was just it was like a weird but really good like mix of just the sound. So all right, so it's 2001. Delusions of Grandeur is done. You put it out. Why don't you talk about the release of that record?
Yeah, by that time there was just like a lot of people in our circle. So we did a ton of shows. We traveled. We were really like self-managed, and we had another manager who was on board who like had ties to Atlanta.
Sure.
got us down to Atlanta to meet some people, and really ran the gamut of like people who heard the record and were like, "This is awesome. We gotta do something with this."
Yeah.
To like, hurry up and wait.
Sure.
And during that time, we met the Black Eyed Peas.
Okay.
Because we had opened for them. And then that relationship, you know, with not necessarily the group, but the band really formed strong. And this is before they were the Black Eyed Peas.
Right.
Which is weird because I feel like I'm name dropping, but it's true.
Yeah.
And so, like, over the next 2 to 3 years, we were deciding what we wanted to do.
Sure.
And I was producing so much for so many people that I, like, my contribution and focus on the group was not to the level that it needed to be. So the group basically changed from being Suspects to being Golden.
Okay. Yep.
And so Golden, you know, partnered with one of the people who was a producer and part of the Black Eyed Peas, Prince Board, and like kind of went off to do a solo thing that I was still like heavily involved with.
Yeah.
Like co-produced the record, added a lot of ideas, toured with the band, but you know, he became the face of it.
Sure.
And I kind of settled into this, like, I want to meet people and create music and elevate what they're doing. And that's how Broken Home Studios came about.
Okay.
Was, like, I was making hundreds of beats.
Right.
With nowhere to go.
Right. So Delusions of Grandeur, was that the last Suspects album?
That was the last official Suspects album. We had, after that, we had about 3/4 of an album done that ended up never getting released.
Okay. I feel like a lot of that stuff might have been, when I first met you, you gave me a disc. So this is around 2003 now.
Yeah.
So we're not that far away on the timeline here. I met you in like 2003. You gave me a CD, and it had like 24 tracks. And I feel like a lot of that was Suspect stuff because you had Casey on some of the hooks and verses.
Yeah.
But it was mainly like solo Jayechs. And now Jayechs, was that your first official rap name?
Yeah. Well, it's basically, so my full name is Jay Escobar Haskins. So I just like stole letters from my name.
Okay.
And created a new name, which is Jay, which is what everybody calls me, Jay.
Yep.
EC from Escobar, HS from Haskins.
Ah, that's how it is. Because I always thought it was like Jayechs, like Malcolm X.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, that's dope. Jayechs, the unknown or whatever. But that's dope. I'm glad to finally have that. So when I first met you, that was what you were going by, was Jayechs.
Yeah.
And you were at Broken Home. Why don't you go ahead and let us into the creation of Broken Home, what that was like, who you worked with there, and kind of what happened there?
Yeah, so right around, well, in the Delusions of Grandeur period, I met Sinycal.
Okay. Shout out Sinycal.
And we were just really good friends who both had a huge crush on Gwen Stefani.
Okay.
And so we bonded over that
Nice.
that mutual crush on Gwen Stefani.
Yeah, she was hot though.
Yeah, and Sinycal had showed me, because she wasn't rapping at the time, she had showed me some of her raps from like years and years before. I mean, like she was like 11, 12 years old.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh, you should see these videos of me rapping." And I'm like, "You're good. I'm going to produce a record for you."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I needed a space and an outlet to do that. And this dude who was basically just like somebody who was into Souls of Life and came around to all our shows and was a big supporter.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, "Dude, I have my own house. you can build your studio in my house. Just let me like be a part of whatever you're doing.
Sure.
And so I was like, that's a really good offer. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
Right.
So yeah, so that's what I did. And his name's John Horn, and
Yeah.
he let me build a studio in his house. And it's funny because in your early 20s, you don't know people that have their own house.
Sure.
So that impressed me off top. So I was like, all right, this dude got his own house. I'm gonna build a studio. It's gonna be dope. And so yeah, so I built a studio in there, and essentially it was like a space where I could produce a record for Sinycal. That's all where it started from.
Okay.
And then John just started introducing me to people. And he was like, you could produce for this person and this person and this person.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I had hundreds of beats already. So I was like, I can produce for that many people. Why
Right,
not? So
right.
like he brought Illuminous 3 through and he introduced me to you.
Yeah.
And like just basically whoever was down to come through that space was welcome.
Yeah.
And then Tri-D
Yeah.
came through and we worked on a bunch of stuff together, and you know we both stayed there for a little bit because at the time I had my son,
Okay. Yeah.
so I had just had a kid whose mom was not like really in the position to take care of him.
Sure.
So yeah, so it was like me, my son, Tri-D, and John,
Okay.
and a bunch of people always there
Yeah.
recording. And I think just being, you know, young and in our early 20s and not knowing any better. And personally, I will say, like, my biggest downfall in that time period was like I was a real jerk when it came to females.
Sure.
And so, like, at the time, I didn't care if she was your girlfriend. I didn't care if she was your fiance. You know, I
Yep.
didn't care, like, if I was dating 5 or 6 girls at the same time. Like, I was
Right.
just going to do what I was going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that, like, toxic masculinity, you know, with other dudes in the house who are like, oh, this dude's, like, out here going to be like that. Like, let's compete.
Right.
And then, like, you know, people getting mad at me because, like, you know, like I said before, like, outside of that part of my life, like, I want to get to know people and I'm excited by togetherness. So, like, you have this person who's, like, always up in everybody's business.
Yep.
And also, like, taking people's girlfriends.
Right. Right.
And, like, doing shady stuff on the low. So, like, my reputation, like, really started getting beat up.
Yeah, man.
You know, in just, like, because there's a lot of people in the community here,
Yep.
but it's a small community.
It's a very small town.
So, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, don't trust Jay around your girl. And, you know, and I had no remorse at the time because I wasn't a grown up.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean, I was essentially really behaving on a 13-year-old mentality.
Sure. Yeah, man.
Partially because, you know, I would say I was kind of like a late bloomer.
Okay.
And also partially because I was so into music and somehow was able to cobble together enough of a living,
Yeah.
not really doing anything for a living,
Yeah, yeah.
that I didn't have to grow up. Even with taking care of a kid,
Right.
like, I mean, when a kid is a baby, you just play with it
Yeah. Yeah.
and keep it from crying.
Right.
You know, I mean, at least that's what I did. So sorry, you know, shout out to my son and sorry.
Yeah. Man.
You know, I wasn't better when you were like an infant.
I mean, I always say that same thing too. You know, one of the downfalls of me starting this career, this music career, when I was so young, is that from age 13 to 25, I feel like I was a complete mess, and it's because I was forced to grow up while like doing business with people. Like, what the, you know, like that's not wise, you know, to like, you're still developing and growing up and everything. And I was in the same exact boat where those early 20s, it was just like girl crazy, you know, and
Yeah.
it's almost because like you have this feeling of you can, you know, but luckily you recognized that and you evolved and grew up. I like to feel like I also have, but there are plenty of men still out there that you probably know some that just seems like they'll never quite get that message. Like it might be a little too late in their lives for them to make that growth. But I think the most important part is that you did catch it, you grew from it, you know. But it definitely, it sucks when your name and like your reputation is just garbage because you're kind of growing up in front of people.
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean, like, a couple of fortunate things happened. You know, one is I had the opportunity to like travel and be out in LA and work with some people in LA. So I was able to like, when the drama was really about to hit the fan, or when somebody was about to hit me, I could just bounce to LA for a little bit and like do some stuff out there, and then come back and like, you know, stuff blew over a little bit. So like, I mean, I kind of spent a little bit of time just like developing my chops as a producer, getting some experiences traveling, but also like kind of letting my name die out.
Sure.
And then I got into, I got married to not the right person because we were divorced within a couple years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, like, I will say, like, you know, I also take 90% of the responsibility for that.
Sure, man.
Because, you know, I was still traveling. I was married to my music while trying to be married to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, she came into my life and was taking care of my son. Then we had a daughter. You know, so she was taking care of somebody else's kid like a mom. Had another kid. And meanwhile, like, I'm still fairly childish. So it was really like the biggest turning point was when that divorce happened, or I should say separation because the divorce took a while, but
Sure.
was like late 2005. It was like literally Christmas of 2005.
Okay.
So, you know, by that time, you know, just through my own like stuff, Broken Home Studios kind of had dissolved earlier that year.
So what led to the end of Broken Home?
I don't think that there was one incident. I mean, I think me getting married and needing to be away from that, and then me traveling, and when I would come back from like, you know, say I'd be gone for like a month or so, you know, just like I would come back and then there was like a bunch of new people there that I didn't know. And also, I'm not a big fan of marijuana. Like, which is not a popular opinion in the hip hop world, but it's just like, you know, I personally am not a big partaker.
Man.
Of it, and so the copious amounts of marijuana smoke in the studio.
I suppose, when you're trying to engineer the track and the smoke is just clouding up the studio, and you're not a fan of it, I'm sure.
And you know, and I was, you know, had just gotten married, you know, and was trying to live out that marriage somewhat. So I mean, I wouldn't say it ended; it dissolved.
Okay, people just kind of went their own ways. It seems like.
You know, but a lot of good things, like, I feel like happened out of that in terms of like just connections and production. So I don't look back on that as like any sort of bad time except for like my own personal behavior. Cause I can only be accountable for the stuff that I do, not what other people do.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, I was still grinding it out, still producing, still making music, you know, and I was forced to take a break when I got divorced. When I got separated, I was forced to take a break because I had to reevaluate my priorities. 2 young kids. A very sketchy income situation. You know, because I was like, you know, before what they now know as the gig economy, like I had the literal gig economy.
Right.
You know, and it could be like it could be nice. It could be like, oh, I'm like doing enough to make like $5,000 this month, and then the next month I'd make negative $1,500.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like it would be like that, and that just wasn't stable at all. So I really had to like reset and reprioritize at that point. So I took a mini hiatus.
Okay.
Like right around that time.
Now, is this when you decided that this is going to be kind of the death of Jayechs and the birth of something new? Because I remember that being a big deal when it was like R.I.P. Jayechs. And
Yeah,
it was like,
so-
what the hell? But it turns out it was...
So that was actually after the hiatus. So I took a hiatus, and then I just wanted to be a normal person.
Yeah.
I had no friends who didn't do music,
Okay.
like zero.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like, I wasn't making music. I didn't want to go to shows. So it was just me and my kids, and I was lonely
Yeah.
for a while. And just through the internet, somebody invited me to this church called Substance Church.
Sure.
And I met people who were just genuinely interested in me for me, and didn't need any business
Yeah, yeah.
and didn't need any work.
Yeah.
And we just talked about life and stuff. And like, I was like, prior to that, I was agnostic.
Okay.
Like I didn't know if I believed in God or not. It was actually, if you listen to, somewhere, I don't know where, but if you could go through the vaults and listen to Suspect's music,
Yeah.
almost all of my verses were wrestling with, do I believe in God? What exactly do I believe spiritually?
Sure.
It was kind of like a journey that played out in my music. Even subconsciously, I didn't realize that until I looked back on it. But just meeting nice people who were like interested in being my friends. So like, I like was an atheist, agnostic person going to this church every week for like 6 or 7 months and hanging out with these people and watching football and stuff like that on the weekends. And then I started like really to believe in a lot of what I was reading.
Sure.
And this may sound like hyper analytical, but like I went and I bought every documentary on like biblical times and Jesus, like, and like started reading, because I didn't want to buy into it if it was a scam.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really have a frame of reference to be like, oh, like this is legit. I'm going to like raise my hands and all of a sudden, Jesus is going to save me. I'm like, okay, did this Jesus really exist? So I did an investigation discovery, like deep dive CSI. I wanted to know everything that I can know.
That's dope though.
And I came out the other side believing more.
Sure.
And the fact that like morally what I was like feeling and the thing that was inspiring me was like literally the stuff that Jesus actually said in the Bible, which is different than the way a lot of Christians that I had seen act and talk. I was like, whoa, this is like totally different. So so when that happened, it was like a death and a rebirth.
Okay.
It was like that old me that like was really selfish, was not a good father, was about womanizing, was basically like a music robot and that's it.
Yeah.
That all had to die in order for me to make any sort of music again.
Dope. So you were saying the death of Jayechs, and then you had to go through that in order to get back into music again.
Yeah, because there were a couple people at church who did music, who both the worship music there, and then also there was one of the pastors at the church was a rapper.
Okay.
And so I was, at the time I was reading Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales.
Okay.
And there's this one line where the main character says, "Anon, I must go."
Oh.
And so I was like, oh, that looks like that little phrase there, "Anon, I must," looked like Anonymous to me. And I was like, I want to be anonymous. So I took that phrase and that became my name.
Nice.
And so I produced and worked under that for the next stretch.
Okay.
Just mainly focused on doing stuff within the church, and music that was really like geared towards God and geared towards Jesus, because that was the most exciting thing happening in my life right now.
Yeah.
And my kids were flourishing with me as a single parent, where I was, essentially more than 50-50 with them, which was really cool. And so that, I was basically just recreating something new that was more healthy.
Dope. So, all right. So you're in a new kind of chapter in your life. The Jayechs days are pretty much done. What led to the whole fame thing, and then your transition into a DJ? And then we'll go ahead and take a second commercial break here.
Cool. Yeah, so I was doing Christian music as Anonimust, and in a group called Hour to Hope, which was just doing music for Jesus.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh yeah, I really love producing music for other people. And there was just a bunch of people at church that were talented that I was meeting, and I wanted to produce stuff for them. And so I just started producing, really. And this takes us now. We're in 2009.
Okay.
And there was a girl at church who I was friends with, went on a date with, and became my girlfriend.
Okay.
Pretty much instantly.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And and she was a big encourager of me, like, flourishing in my music career again.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
she listened to my old stuff, and she saw how I felt about making music.
Excuse me. Holy shit.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So I started dating again, and dating a young lady at my church who was encouraging me to do music and encouraging me to produce.
Okay.
Her name's Lauren. We got engaged and married.
Nice.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, so we got married in 2010. And at that point, we were just living in a house, and I was reaching back out to people because I felt I was in a healthy place. And that was when I was like, man, let's make a record.
Yeah.
To Oracle Uno.
Yeah, man.
I was like, man, I miss you, bro. You were like the first non-Christian artist.
Sure, yeah.
That I worked with as Anonymust.
That's dope. Yeah, I mean, we have worked throughout the years. I mean, you've been throwing me beats for a long time. I feel like since this episode is about you, we can touch on that, but perhaps in the future we can maybe go down like the discography of what we put out and just talk about the times and that good stuff.
Yeah.
But so you had started this thing called Fame.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed by that. If you want to touch on what Fame was.
Yeah, so that actually came out of that.
Oh,
it was
okay.
like, now I feel like, I don't necessarily need to be tied to Christian music,
right,
to be a Christian in the music industry. And so I had been a part of this company called Foreign Affairs Media for years, with a dude who I had met in LA, who ended up moving to France.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, dude, do you mind if I take this name? He was originally from France.
Okay.
I met him in LA. He moved back to France.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So, but I was like, do you mind if I take this name and take this company and do something with it? And he's like, no, like, you're a part of it. Like, you're a contributor to it. You can like take on the mantle. So Foreign Affairs Media just happened to be a very long name.
Sure.
So I just added enterprises to it.
Sure. Yeah.
So the initials are FAME.
Cool.
And that makes Fame. And that was what I started as a production company, and started a studio in my basement that I would just invite people into and invite them into the experience of like, I had learned so much by this point. I'm like, I want to offer both studio time and wisdom.
Sure. Yeah, man.
And try to help people avoid the things that really set me on a bad course, and some of the things that I had seen, because, we're talking about me, but the people who I've known in the music industry and their experiences, both good and bad, have been a lesson to me that I try to pass on to other people.
Yeah.
And so I took the company and incorporated it here in Minnesota, and was operating it for the first couple years out of a studio in my house, while I was working at Broadened Horizons.
That's right.
Which is an assistive technology company. And basically when I really felt like I had my feet underneath me and I had enough money in the bank to go and launch it, I went and found a studio space and launched it, and I've been in that studio space 5 years now.
Dope. So is Fame still around right now? Are
Yeah.
you still taking on like the artist and doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if someone wanted to get in touch with you about Fame, what's the best way of doing that?
You can go to hit me up personally on like Instagram at the Jay Escobar.
Okay.
Or you can go to artistdevelopment.net.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is, artistdevelopment.biz. I'm
Okay.
giving out the wrong info here.
Yeah.
Artistdevelopment.biz.
Okay.
Because really that was just, I realized that in the studio experience, it's holistic, and the best way to describe it is as artist development. Because generally, if you're coming to me like, and we start building a relationship in terms of recording,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, the like first 5 songs that we record are gonna be leaps and bounds behind the stuff that we might be doing a year later.
Sure.
And so people really come alongside, and I've had both artists that are brand new, like a lot of artists who come to me like really young, 14, 15, and then some artists who come to me and are like, I really want to make a pivot in my career.
Yeah.
And they just want to like change their sound and their style. I've been partnered with an artist named True Serva, who by the time he came to me, he was already a nationally touring artist, already signed to Universal Records.
Yeah.
But he realized like he wanted his sound to match his audience more.
Yeah.
Because, he's a Christian artist. And he was mostly like getting beats from several different producers, and the beats were kind of just like, mid 2000s bops.
Sure.
And meanwhile, like his audience is a lot of like white churchgoers, and he knew that I had some pop sensibilities. So I took kind of the concepts that I had in working with younger new artists and applied it to him. And I'm like, let's imagine, let's blow up your past career, and just reimagine like what is the type of music that you want to make right now. And he was basically like, somewhere along the lines of a cross between like a Christian like Flow Rida,
Yeah.
but a lyrical one.
Dope.
And so that's what we came up with. And so I love taking on projects like that where like, an established artist can come to me and we can just create something completely new, like reset the template in terms of what they want their sound to be, because that's, if somebody's interested in like coming to me and like, oh, I just want to make another version of like the album that I did last year or 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily interested in that. Mm-hmm. But if somebody's like, I want to do something crazy,
Yep.
that's what gets me excited.
Dope, man. Well, hey, let's go ahead. We'll go into the second commercial break here, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you got going on right now as far as the DJing and whatnot, and then we'll put you through the Lightning Gauntlet and wrap it up.
Dope.
So we'll be right back. This is Organized Grind, the podcast with Oracle Uno, kicking it with Jay Escobar. Hey, what's up, world? This is Oracle Uno checking in to let you know that I just released a brand new EP entitled Speech Therapy. It's entirely self-produced, and you can now get it at oracleuno.com. That's ORIKALUNO.com. Thank you for listening.
It's all unraveling, I feel it in my abdomen. About to take a swim in a bottle from the cabinet. Full throttle, hollowing the content of the glass I sip. Too much pain, yeah, the shit ain't even masking it. Okay, got a few loose things I need to tighten up. Do it in the dark before the sky tries to brighten up. Maneuver in the shadows, that's all I'm really used to. Most people always try to find a way to use it. Feeling for a drive, I'm in need to feel alive. 95 miles per hour on a 94 ride. Pissing off passerbys that I force to coincide with me. Middle finger up to the punk on the side of me. Rough around the edges, disrespecting the guest list. Use all my drink tickets and forget the set list. I've seen it all before and you ain't impressive. I ain't shit either, yeah, I've learned that lesson. Had it go in the wind. Got my windows open, I ain't holding it in. I try to take it slow, but the motion's intense. It happened too fast, can't get over the bends. Let it go, let it go, let it go in the wind. Got my windows open, I ain't holding it in. I try to take it slow, but the motion's intense. It happened too fast, can't get over the bends. Let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
My vision hazy, yeah, I know I'm living crazy though, drowning in the frequency.
Organized Grind, the podcast with Oracle Uno, kicking it with Jay Escobar. We're going to go ahead and try this again. So I would say, like, currently, as of right now, it seems like you're heavily focused on the DJ side of your career. Why don't you go ahead and touch on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, like I said, I'm with Freshwater Deejays. Been there since 2015. I've always DJ'd. I started on vinyl back when I was like 15, and I used to make mixtapes like as a kid.
Okay.
For my friends, like mostly R&B mixtapes that
Yeah.
they would throw on at house parties to get girls excited. But yeah, so just the fact that I'm getting so many gigs, and I really love weddings. So I do a ton of weddings every year, probably, 25 or more weddings each year, and they're all super fun for me. But it's nice. I mean, being part of a DJ crew, being a part of the DJ community here, I really love that side of the industry, and it's, that's probably my primary income now. It's like between the studio and DJing, it's probably like 60-40 with DJing.
Nice.
Making up most of that. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is releasing an album. I've never before this year released a solo album.
Okay.
I made a lot.
Wow.
I made a lot of music in the vault.
That's right.
Under various aliases. Released some stuff. A joint project before with Tri-D. I released stuff as a group with Suspects. But I finally had the project that I felt like, yeah, this is me.
That's tight, man.
And it's an R&B album.
Okay.
Where I have one rap verse on the whole album. The rest is just me singing.
Nice.
And it's inspired by my marriage. Now with Lauren, I've been married going on 9 years.
Wow, I can't believe it's been that long already.
Yeah. So, from what I've come from and from what I've experienced, the man who I was and the death of that man to now being what I feel like is a fully complete human being with a fully complete partner. That's where this album came from. It's called Shape of Our Heart.
Okay.
And so just a little bit behind that, like basically, as a Christian, I believe that God's a part of all of us. So Shape of Our Heart has to do with the fact that me and my wife's heart have become one, and it's become one with God's heart.
Okay.
And so it's really about the molding of those three hearts and the fact that it can be uncomfortable and messy and painful at times.
Sure.
But it's also beautiful.
And so where can people find this album?
So it is on Apple Music. It's on Spotify. It's pretty much anywhere where you can download or stream music.
Okay.
So if you're signed up for any of the services, you just got to search my name, Jay Escobar, or search Shape of Our Heart.
Cool.
And it'll come up. It's a little EP. It's the first of what may be some more music coming out.
Dope, man. Well, that's awesome. Congrats on that. Why don't we go ahead? We'll have a little bit of fun here with the Lightning Gauntlet. So what this is I have 3 random questions that I'm going to ask Jay. I have no idea what questions these are going to be as they are random. So why don't we go ahead? We'll go into the first one here.
All right.
Question number 1. If you could build a tunnel, regardless of length, under anything at all, what would it be?
The border between the U.S. and Mexico.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a couple of tunnels there already, but word up.
As long as it stays hidden.
Let's see here. Question number 2. If you could have 24/7 phone access to any expert in the world, whom would you want to be able to call whenever you needed an answer?
If I could have 24/7 access, that's
To anybody.
to anybody.
You can call them unlimited times for when you ever have a question.
I mean, like, this is gonna sound corny, but I would say Pope Francis.
Okay. Well, why is that?
Because I feel like he has a really graceful way of leading the church.
Okay.
And he really has a heart for God, and I need all the spiritual guidance I can get at times.
Sure. All right. And then question number 3, Lightning Gauntlet. If right now you could be handed anything at all that would fit in the palm of your hand besides money, what would you want it to be?
Ooh. That could fit in the palm of my hand.
That's right. Not money.
Not money. The keys to a brand new house that's all mine.
Dope. Great answers, man. Well, Jay just completed the Lightning Gauntlet. Why don't you go ahead if you have final words or shout outs? I know that you brought a song for us to play too. So go ahead, let's hear some final shout outs. And then if you'd like to introduce that song, that'd be great.
Yeah, basically, shout out to everybody in the Minnesota music scene. Hip hop, pop, rock, whatever. I just love being a co-conspirator and a co-collaborator with each and every one of you. Shout out to my wife, Lauren, my kids, Ella and Dominic and Adele. They're my heart and soul. Pictures on my Facebook of me and the 2 oldest at Sunset last year.
Nice.
One of my favorite memories. And this song is called Trust the Process.
Okay.
And this is one of my favorites off my new record. It's really just about growing together through acts of service. As a couple, it's not all about what you do for each other and do for yourselves. Sometimes it's about what you do for other people.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for stopping by the podcast today. It's been a lot of fun. This has been Organized Grind, the podcast with Oracle Uno and Jay Escobar. This is Jay Escobar. Trust the process. As always, peace and love.
Organized Grind with Oracle Uno. Recorded live at Graff Roots Studios in South Minneapolis.
We've gotta trust the things we can't touch. Miracles are hidden inside of us. Ordinary days don't seem to mean a thing at the time. We're blind to the divine. We were born to fall in love. We were made to rise above. We were told to sacrifice. We were
There's a well for us to give. Ordinary days could elevate with grace. Don't pass by. There's a chance to share the light. We were born to fall in love. We were made to rise above. We were told to sacrifice. We were trained to give it up. Trust the process. We were promised a higher plane of existence. If we overcome all resistance, trust the process. Trust the process. Oh, trust the process. Trust the process. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Process. Process. I promise. Now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the love my soul to keep. I know I've been a slave to me, but I just wanna be set free. My selfish heart has made mistakes.